Today on The State of Us, the most important financial mistakes or advice that you could receive before going to college. More than 1 in 2 college students say they have a poor or fair level of financial knowledge. Let that soak in for a second, right? More than 1 in 2 say they have a poor or fair level of financial knowledge. Now, sure, you could say, well, I'm not a college student, so why does this matter to me? But the way that our college students understand finances impacts us all. So today we're going to look at a handful of tips. The Wall Street Journal had 25 financial tips for college students because a lot of first-year students aren't prepared to manage money on their own. And we're not going to get to go over all 25, but we have selected a few that I think stood out to Lance and I as ones of particular interest. Now, the way the Journal did this particular one, which I think was pretty interesting, is that they chose to solicit responses from across the nation. So each of these tips comes from a different person in a different part of the country and said what I wish I knew when I was in college, or what worked for me that was the most important thing. So that's kind of what we're doing today. Welcome to The State of Us. I'm your host, Justin T. Weller, joined by the one and only, your friendly redneck liberal, and the senior resident historian here at True Chat, Mr. Lance Jackson.
Money, 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 money.
That's another one of those.
Yep. Talking about money. College kids.
Your favorite.
You know, and the other thing is, most of us have a hard time bragging about ourselves. So when they say, what's your financial knowledge? How many people would really say, well, I know a whole lot. You know, so
that's
I mean,
fair.
Just in defense of the students going to college this fall, I respect their humbleness
if that's what it is.
in their knowledge, right? If that's what it is.
If that's what it is.
I'm giving them the benefit of the
I know.
doubt.
Look at you being nice. The friendly redneck
That's right.
liberal.
I'm doing the friendly part.
So first up on the list, establish expectations. Now this one, folks, is from Joanne Jabakowski. I'm very sorry about your last name. Woodbridge, Illinois. I'm not sorry about your last name. I'm sorry about how I just pronounced it. She says, when my child started college, I laid out this plan. I would pay for tuition, room, and board based on 2 factors. Number 1, maintaining an overall GPA above 3.0. And number 2, calling home twice a week to let me know they were alive. My rationale was that companies prefer to hire those with a 3.0 GPA or above, and if I was paying, then that deserved the respect of 2 calls a week. Additionally, fraternity or sorority membership costs, if they were interested, were 100% theirs. Parents should encourage both personal growth and academic achievement for their college-age kids by establishing expectations.
Well, my daughters both had to keep the 3.0 because that was their scholarship. So they both received half scholarships from a small Midwestern university private college. So for them to stay in school, they had to keep a 3.0 because if they lost the scholarship, we would not have been able to afford the tuition. And then they were given the choice of they could, after their freshman year, they could be an RA. That is, they could run a dorm floor for the cost of their housing, or they could find a way to pay for it themselves. And so they both chose to be RAs for 3 years, which then saved us, the parents, a lot of money and it also saved them because they didn't incur any cost for their room, and we paid for their board. Their school, they didn't get anything for food, so we took care of that for them. So yeah, I mean, I think what you hope is that you start to teach them some financial independence in those times, as well as being independent in getting themselves up, getting them, finding a way to, okay, you're going to buy your books. Okay, what's the, or we're going to give you X amount of dollars towards your books. You figure out which one do you want new, which one you're going to keep, which one will you buy off of Amazon for 99 cents that's all marked up. What can you live with? What can you live without? You let them make some of those decisions because you hope within the next 4 or 5 years, they're going to be out doing this on their own. And so the more they learn while they're in school, hopefully the better they will be prepared. Yeah, so I like that. Set expectations, You just don't give them a credit card and say, whatever you run up, I'll pay. Yeah. You don't do that.
So the other thing is, and I guess this would be advice to the students themselves, right? Because a lot of this advice, folks, is both advice for parents of the students going off and the students themselves. If you're the student, you say, well, I don't really know what the expectations are, or we haven't really talked about that. There's no time like the present. Go ahead and ask.
Well, we've talked before, right?
Go ahead and ask. There's nothing wrong with asking.
There's not a bad question, right? You have to have the conversation sometime.
Yeah.
Never better than the present.
So if you're listening and your parents haven't brought it up, go ahead and bring it up to them. What are the expectations?
Because they have an idea.
Right.
They maybe haven't shared it with you, but they know what they're...
And whatever it is, if you know it, you're going to be better prepared then. So, and that doesn't mean that they're paying for anything, but if they're not paying for anything, that would be good to know. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of what the expectations are, you probably need to understand what they are so that you can better prepare. And you talked about, buying books or buying things for your dorm room. The next one is about buying. And really, it's two separate ones. One from Jennifer in Atlanta and the other one from Tim in North Carolina. And basically, we're putting these two together. The first one is, do you need it or do you want it? And the second one is, wait a day to buy. Now, these, I would say, sure, this is, good college financial advice, but I think this is just solid life financial advice, right?
I mean, be careful of the impulse buy, right?
Yes.
Because that always gets us in trouble. I mean, do you like it? Okay. In a couple of days, if you still like it, maybe you need to go back and get it.
Levi's our producer, and
of course, you convince yourself of anything that you need.
That's right.
So again, that 24 or 48 hours, do I really need it? Or have you been thinking, wow, it would be a lot easier to study if I had X.
Right.
And then, so you've already given it the 24 or the 48 hour, and then you go out and get it, right? I've tried to study, or I've tried to do this, and I just need this. That's fair as well.
So, Levi, you ever accidentally impulse buy? That ever happened to you?
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
What do you impulse buy?
Food.
Food. Well, you need food, don't you?
And a key fob.
You have to eat.
Okay.
The key fob was your big impulse buy of the summer.
You're never going to live that one down.
Nope.
Because that just hurts the heart of the
Had
friendly
a perfectly
redneck
good
liberal.
key that worked to get in the car, and went out and paid to have one so he could just have to push a button because he was too lazy to stick the key into the door.
I just like to point out, I always get all the heat for ragging on Levi, but this one's not me. But you're never going to live that down. As soon as you said that, I knew that is seared into the mind fabric of Mr. Jackson for all eternity now.
No comment.
You will never, ever live that down. Never. And you shouldn't. So there's my dig. Do you need it or want it? Do you ever ask yourself that before you buy something, Levi?
I do, but I usually don't.
You don't care about the answer.
You don't follow your
care, which is
your
the problem.
instincts?
I know exactly. Yep.
Do I need it or do I want
Yeah.
it? Well, I don't really care. So I guess.
You know that you don't need it, but you really want it, so you go ahead and get it anyway.
Well, that's where the second one comes in. Wait a day. For anything that costs you over $50, wait a day before buying. Plan ahead on expenses, and once you meet your budget, stop spending. Wait a day. If you see something that you want, if you still want it 24 hours later, fine. But if you slept on it and you don't really have the money for it, there's a decent chance that your subconscious will have caught up with you and said, Levi, this is a really dumb thing to do right now. It's okay that you want this, but you can't have it right now.
The key fob was lingering on my mind for a while.
I was going to say, see, that you just validated the key fob.
That's right. Well, it wasn't an impulse, but it was a want versus a need.
But he thought about it. And in all due respect to Levi, he saved up the money for it. So he did have the money.
So even though it's a want that you would disagree with, the way he went about doing it was the best you could do for a
follows
want.
exactly what you said. Yes.
Okay.
He thought about it for a long time. He saved the money up for it and then bought it, even though it was a bad choice.
So he smacks you down and then lifts you up. And it's that.
I could have been $200 on my poor car payment.
Exactly. You could have had grandma paid off. Yeah.
Well, so you're one of those lucky people where the bank is grandma, and so she's not going to repo your car probably.
No.
But
and you could have added to your Roth.
That's true.
That's true.
Look, all these things
my future,
you could have done.
there it is.
Just put that key fob and just hold it up and say, kids, we could have gone on vacation to Disney World, but Dad got this key fob.
I have something to show for it. Hey,
that's all he cares. I have something to show for it. Not very much.
I could go resell
It's
that
not very
for
big.
more of a price than what I bought it for. If somebody was willing to buy it, and you'd have
key
to
fob?
reprogram it. Sure,
Well, they got to reprogram. Otherwise, you're going to
Nobody's
going to
pay you more than $200 for it. Nobody's going to pay you $200 for that fob. Do you have the original package?
okay, but at least it's a physical thing. It's not going to my belly. It's not food. It's a physical
Well,
thing.
food you have to live. You don't have to have that key fob to live. I know he's
I'm
trying
just
to
saying-
defend it.
Okay.
Anyway, next item, no loans for expenses. This one I thought is very interesting. This one comes to us from Atlanta as well. Students and parents should be rigorous in borrowing only for books and tuition. Living, transportation, and entertainment expenses should not be financed with debt. This is why some people finish college with monstrous debt looming over them. It's less tuition and books and lab fees and more of room, board, transportation, and entertainment expenses that sink their ships before they even get out of the harbor.
But Levi, you just went to a couple college visits.
Yeah.
And where did you get the sticker shock? It wasn't with tuition. Where did your eyes pop when they told you what?
What happened after financial aid?
Right. And how much you had to pay to live on campus.
Yeah.
Tuition or
Yeah,
room
it was
and
like,
board.
It was
Yeah,
almost
room
room
and
and board was almost more
Yeah.
than tuition, right?
Yeah.
So in fairness to parents, Levi just went yesterday on a couple college visits, and it wasn't the tuition that was the sticker price. It was the room and board,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Here's an interesting thought, though.
Okay.
My dad, 50 years of age, just recently, a couple years ago, paid off his college.
So ask him, because it's worth knowing, ask him what all did his college loans pay for while he was at college. The part of the reason I marked this one is we know somebody that's at college right now, and I happen to know for a fact that they are indeed using financial, student aid loans for housing. Mm-hmm. And then what they make from what they're working is going to food and other living expenses. So I guess it's a nice notion, I suppose, if you can afford to do that. But the other side of that is the next one, which is live off campus. The best advice I got was to move off campus to a non-student apartment, said Andrew from Virginia. Rents are cheaper if it isn't indirectly related to the university. I went from paying $5,000 a year for a shared room on campus to $3,800, including utilities, for my own room and bathroom, and could still walk to campus. You have to sign a lease and set up utilities, which can be complicated, but this is all good life experience, and it can help you build your credit.
I know parents who have bought a house and had their student stay in the house because it was cheaper than room and board from the college, and then 4 years later sold the house at a profit. I mean, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, and agreeing with you, there's all kinds of ways to get around the room and board and find a cheaper way to do it.
But you have to look into it, and you have to research the alternative options. More tips that we've got to look at, some that aren't just for college students. What about a broken heart? What does that have to do with financial planning? Keep it here on The State of Us. We'll be right back. Levi is our intern, and he heads off to college. It's going great. And then the love of his life breaks his heart. Budget for a broken heart. This is not one that I've seen on the tip list before. It comes to us from Los Angeles, Kathy. And she tells us that college romance can be brutal. And either a quick trip home for TLC by the student or a trip by the parent to soothe the brokenhearted is likely to be required over the space of 4 years. Know this and tuck a few bucks back to cover this contingency. It may seem extravagant, but it's cheaper than a failed semester. I had friends in college who were absolutely the victim of that. It's not going to happen to me. It won't be me. It's not going to be my problem. It's easy to say that. The worst thing that happens, I suppose, in the event that you budget for this is that you don't need it. That's the worst thing that happens. And then you set aside this little pot of money. It's like, oh, now I have this that I can do something.
And I will add to that, not only in the relationship, but also if you've got a pretty close-knit relationship with your child, to keep them there, they need to see you every once in a while on campus.
And that's going to cost
not
something.
Every weekend.
Right.
Our rule was you can't come home until after homecoming at your college. Then you can come home. And then we'll come see you one more time before exams. So now you saw us, we saw you, but there were 2 visits where we got to see each other. And it's hard on the parent, right? Because this is somebody you've paid attention to for 18 or 19 years, and now you just send them on their way. But I think that's important. I think it loses something when I see those kids every Friday night, they're home for a football game, and it's like, well, you never really left. How did you, you're not, we don't have any friends at school. No, you never stayed the weekend.
Yep.
That's when you're going to make friends at colleges on the weekend.
Right. So in some ways, it's budget for a broken heart / budget for being homesick, right? Whether it's the people or the place, you need to be thinking about that's a real thing. It happens to a lot of people, especially freshman year when they first go to college, of experiencing that either, detachment from family who they've been with a long time, detachment from the place they grew up, a combination of those things, or partly if you're experiencing those things, then maybe a new relationship, and then it doesn't work out, which compounds all of that. And if you haven't thought ahead about that, then you're digging into.
It gets expensive when you start talking about hotel room and maybe taking them and 2 or 3 friends out for dinner. That can be an expensive trip, but it is cheaper, as the author of that information points out. It is cheaper than losing a whole semester to failed classes.
Right. Yeah. So it's better if you're going to do one or the other, it's better to do the cheaper, and also doesn't set you back nearly as far either. Just from you're not losing all that work, not just the money, but the work too. The next 2 we're also grouping together because and you might say, well, what do these have in common? So New York City and California, David and Robert respectively tell us, build your credit score and master compound interest. Your credit score means everything. Your options will be extremely limited if you're reckless and irresponsible, so make sure you always pay what you owe and try not to accrue too much debt. Master compound interest. The most important thing I learned in college is the theory of compound interest, which is earning of interest on your original savings plus any accumulated interest. You might say, well, why are we grouping these 2 together? Aren't those separate things? They are, but in this case, they have something very important in common. The sooner you start them, the better for you. So that's why I'm putting them together, because in both cases, part of your credit score is the length of your credit history. How long, on average, have your accounts been open? So when you first open them, that's going to be a big ding against you. But whether you open them when you're 18 or 25, that's going to be a ding against you. Now, if you open them when you're 18, by the time you're 25, now in relation to the person who's 25 who didn't open it, you are in a better position simply from having it open. Didn't even have to use it. But that component of your score is going to serve you better. So there's that part. And then obviously the compound interest component, which is what we've talked about on this show, or also known as the snowball effect. We've talked many times about the sooner you start investing, Thankfully, our producer has started doing that already, which is great. So he's checked off this one. It feels very slow at first, especially because you can't put much into it. I am about to be 28. I can speak already to the impact of the snowball effect. And I am very thankful for one of the first things I did when I turned 18 was start my investment account. It definitely works. It's definitely worth doing sooner rather than later. A lot of people wait until they've gotten started in their career at maybe 24, 26, depending on, what they're doing in college and how long it takes. You lost somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 8 years.
Well, and I will just add this. If you haven't, start it whenever you do.
Right.
Because it's still better than not.
If you
to your
haven't
other
done
point,
it, start
it. Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what your age is.
Yep. Well, because you can't wind back time.
Right.
You obviously can't undo if you haven't, but what you can do is make sure that tomorrow you get started. And that's the compound interest. Mastering it is just understanding that the sooner you start, the better. So if you haven't started, now's the time. Even if it's not a lot, it's that whole thing. It's as much the habit as it is the time of doing it. Just get used to that. All right. Our next one. This one we threw in for Lance. Start with a dime. You want to tell us about this one, Lance? Start with a dime. Maybe a dime doesn't work. Well, our producer doesn't know what a dime is. So I guess that maybe we need to start with an explanation of what a dime is, just in case. Well, he knows that because we quizzed him. He's putting up his hands. He's frantic. I know what a dime is. Never mind that we coached him on it the other day, folks, to spell it out because he wasn't sure what the difference between the nickel and the dime was. And he had the quarter down. I think
I blame our education.
He got the quarter. Yeah, blame the education.
Still doesn't know what a wheat penny is.
No. Well, that one's too complicated.
No, they did teach us cents, currency.
So, all right. You're hurting Lance further. So what is this one, Lance? Tell us, what is this? I mean, I know our producer doesn't know what a dime is, but a dime is 10 cents.
No, but isn't it from a person who was from North Carolina, I think, and he walked in.
Michigan.
Okay.
Well, those are pretty much the same.
They're close. They're close. Michigan. They're both blue.
I'm sure all of our listeners in those two states really appreciate.
Tar Heel blue is a little different than Michigan blue, but anyway. But his professor said, if you save a dime out of every dollar you make, one day you'll be a millionaire. And it was just that simple. It's like tithing. Maybe you tithe to the church 10%, right? Tithe to yourself. And if you pay yourself that money first, you learn to live off of whatever you have left. So like Levi's always about, I got to get something to eat. Well, if you reach down in your pocket and you don't have any money, oh, that's right, he can't do that. When he reaches down and gets his phone out of his pocket, he can look at his account on his phone. And if he doesn't have enough money to go through McDonald's, then he doesn't get to eat. Whereas, because he's put his money aside before he ever started living off of it. So
start with a dime.
Start with a dime, right?
Start with a dime.
That easy. I mean, if it's good enough for the Judeo-Christian religion, it ought to be good enough for your personal finance.
Yes, that's the official advice of the friendly redneck liberal there, folks.
There you go.
We got one more to cover. And this one, I think's important because it's another one that like the budget for a broken heart is not one that I've seen on the list before, but is just a good practical financial advice item for anybody. For anybody. What would it be? It's a great question. Keep it here on The State of Us. We'll be right back. Last but certainly not least, Christopher Mulder from Alexandria, Virginia, tells us consider the value of time. In undergraduate business courses, I discovered charts depicting...
I hear the choir singing in the background.
There they are, yes. I discovered charts depicting the time value of money, or TVM. I'm a visual learner, and these charts had a profound impact I know, on how I saved and invested my resources early in my professional career. Time value of money actually informed my decision to sell my beloved Corvette and get a 4-door sedan. I invested what I would have spent on expensive repairs and maintenance in appreciating assets that have increased over the last 20 plus years. Consider the value of time. Big one, and not one that we think about. I don't know how many times I've talked to...
How many times have you talked about time?
How many times have we talked about time?
He can pay back that Corvette tenfold just by letting it sit. Got to speak for myself here, I know, but...
Yeah, do you have a Corvette sitting around, Levi?
No. But I do have $200 I'll lend to a key fob.
No. Which is not an appreciating return. That's what we call a depreciating return. It only gets worse as time goes. It's kind of like boats that way. It does not recoup its value. So unfortunately, it only loses money and costs more money. But the value of time shouldn't be lost in this of what are you doing that you think serves you, and have you really considered the value of that time? You're in college after all. There is only so much time. You're only going to be there so long. Are you really spending it in a way that you'll look back and be happy about? To me, that's the really important thing here.
Well, and it's true with everything we do in life. I mean, it's
right.
Like,
it doesn't have to be just college.
And it's okay. You don't have to make every single second of your day count for something huge and big, but you do need to value what your time is worth, because so much of our opportunities, we don't take that into account, and we'll do things. I think it was best explained to me. My grandfather was making fun of grandma because grandma would go to 4 different stores because they had a sale on green beans at one store, hamburger on another store.
So she's getting the best deal.
So she would travel around getting the best deal, and she'd spend her entire morning and, a couple gallons of gas. And then grandpa would sit her down and say, you just, you could have been cooking dinner, peeling potatoes. You could have been doing.
Here's the loss of your time and also the money you spent going around.
You didn't save anything. Yes, your food bill is less, but it cost you time and money to do that. So was it really worth your effort? You could have been here doing all these things that now you're going to lose sleep tonight because you have to stay up late and finish your chores, or you missed time. I was sitting here and we could have, spent some time together, but you're out chasing these savings that was it really savings?
Yep.
And that's always struck home because I'm one to pinch a penny, but there does, I do think about it.
You can pinch too hard.
You can pinch way too hard. I mean,
you can smush that wheat penny.
It's the idea of like you get on me about driving my truck, but I'll drive my truck to the recycling center and do my banking and maybe go out to dinner in the same town all on the same trip. So I do.
Because you could have made 3 separate trips.
I could have made 3 separate trips, right.
Which wouldn't have just been gas, but it also would have been.
It would have been time.
Right.
So then people spend a lot of time asking me, how do you fit everything into your day? Well, it's things like that. If you value time, if you value your own personal time, you find ways to do multiple things on one trip. And then if you, like me, you live 10 or 15 minutes from town, you're not going into town 5 times and spending an hour. You go in once and do 5 things, and then you get to spend more time doing what you want to do in life.
The way somebody put it to me once that I think drives it home is if you don't value your time, why would you expect anybody else to? I mean, think about that, right? We're all out there talking about wages and I should be paid more. And Levi's always telling me about how hard he works and how he's the best and the greatest worker that ever lived. Look, he's like, it's too late for this nonsense. No, he doesn't really do that. But everybody'd like to be paid more, right? Everybody'd like to be paid more. If you want other people to value your time, Why don't you value your own time? So the point there isn't, no, you don't always have to be like, well, this is worth 15 an hour, so then I'll do it versus this isn't. Some things you do for happiness, which you don't necessarily want to put a price on, but you should be thinking about that. If you don't value your own time, if you're willing to waste, your own time, then why expect other people to value it? Why hold them to that standard? The other thing is if you value your own time, you're also more likely to keep an eye out for when other people aren't valuing your time properly. So there's a multifold savings there, not only saving your own money and your own time, but also not wasting time and money doing things for people who don't respect or appreciate your time. So I think that one's huge because it's again, it's not just college, but it's the sooner you learn it, the better. It's that whole snowball thing.
And it didn't hurt that it had the word chart in there.
That's right. Well, that's really why, if we're being honest, right? That's why it was chosen, is because it's got the word chart in there. So what do you make of all this, Levi? We've gone through a bunch of different things. Which one sticks out most to you? I'm going to read through them here real quick. You tell me which one is your favorite.
Give a thumbs up, thumb down.
Yeah. We'll go through each one. And
add a comment if you feel so led.
Levi can say yay or nay. Establish expectations.
Yay.
Have you done that in your household?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a two-pronged question. He likes this one. Have you executed it? It's
not to the best of my ability. I wouldn't say that.
It's a meh.
In some degree, yes.
Okay, so we got yay, nay, and meh. So this is a yay.
Hey, at least we didn't get a bro.
A bro. No, he saves that for his friends.
Oh, goodness.
Which we are decidedly not.
I'm thankful for that.
Wow.
No, I'm thankful for no brus. They drive me nuts.
Yeah. Wait a day to buy.
Meh.
He doesn't like that one.
Yeah.
He likes his impulse purchases.
Sometimes assets are important to you.
Hey, when the show's over, are you going to McDonald's before you go home?
No.
Oh. You're not going to have your last meal before you start your senior year?
Before your freedom is over?
Are you trying to make me go waste my money?
He's testing your impulse control. No loans for expenses. No loans for expenses. Don't use loans for expenses.
Just take out your school loans to pay for school.
Right. Don't use them for room and board.
Good
Don't
idea,
use them
not
for
a
housing.
good idea.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. Levi hates it. He says, no, I want to use loans for everything.
Nah, I wouldn't say that.
I'd say he's in the gray. Budget for a broken heart.
Yeah.
Ooh, I wonder if the girlfriend's listening. So this one's a yay. Now, have you done that yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay, but you think that you should.
That was
some degree.
That was the key fob money.
He blew it. Blew the broken heart budget on the key fob. Those darn impulse purchases.
But you'll have it. You'll have that key fob when you're thinking of the girlfriend and the family back home.
You can
look up at the key fob and say, "It's you and me, key fob, against the world."
That's right. Just don't lose the key fob because then you'll be in big trouble. Live off campus. Live off campus. Yay or nay?
Oh, yay.
Oh, yay. Oh man, that one gets a big endorsement from Levi. Build your credit score.
Yeah. Yep.
See, I don't think that one, I don't know. I guess I understand your logic with that one to argue for it, but I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Here's the thing, because this is one that really frustrated me. For the longest time, I couldn't figure out. I'm like, man, I have good payment history. I'm not carrying high balances. Why is my credit score not higher? And then finally, you looked at those other things that make up the 20 to 30% of your score, of which there's many things that are what you would call frustrating. One of them that's not within your control is the average age of your oldest account. And it's like, well, that's freaking stupid. There's nothing I can do about that. It's not my fault that I haven't, I've had accounts as long as I can have them. I can't have them any longer than that. So it's the reason it's there, the other side of this, right, is that what lenders want to look at is if you're opening and closing accounts a lot and you don't have credit accounts that have been around very long, you're a higher risk. Any 18-year-old's a high risk because that's part of the reason why, right? But the only way that you ever mitigate that is by having them. So like I have this American Eagle credit card, okay? I don't even know where that credit card is. I think I know what drawer it's in the bottom of, I haven't put an expenditure on that card in at least 6 years. It has a $3,000 credit limit on it. They increased it twice. It started at $500, and I've never even spent any money on the darn thing, but it's by God still
needs some
open.
school clothes. He's got a credit card. It's just sitting
That's
empty.
right. Why? Yeah. I don't know where it is, but
You ever shop at American Eagle? Me either. I mean, that tells you a little bit about our host. He has an American Eagle card. Ooh.
Anyway, the point was that I have it, but don't use it.
Oh.
And I've had it for, I know.
Yeah, because at least you use the key fob
But I
every
don't
day.
pay for the credit. I didn't pay $200 for this credit card. In fact, I got a discount when I opened this credit card. So, because that was one of the incentives, which is why I opened it. But yeah, I can't profess to have had great financial planning. It was one of those, they caught you at the deal at the register. You get to 40% off today. If you just have to apply, you don't even have to get it. And I thought for sure I wasn't going to get it. I'm like, well, I'm just going to apply because it won't matter. I don't have any credit. And they're like, here's a credit card. And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't really want this, but I have it now. So into the drawer it went, but now it's the oldest card on my account in existence. And I've always kept it because I had read up on, what makes up your credit score. I was trying to improve mine. And one of the things they talked about was the average age of your oldest account makes a big difference, and not a big difference, but it makes a substantive enough difference that it's worth noting. So I've never closed that card because I don't need it. I don't use it. I would never use it because the interest rate's something terrible, like, 28% or whatever. So I would never use that card, but it being there and existing improves your score. That's why that one, I guess, is on here. The sooner you do it, the longer account history you got. So master compound interest, Levi, you doing that one? Yeah. We already said on the show. No, you haven't mastered it yet?
Not mastered, but it's definitely there. I wouldn't say that. I'm not putting in individual
3 payments into his
stocks or
Roth.
anything.
That's pretty much mastery
He's
these
mastered
days.
it.
That's good enough. Consider the value of time.
No.
Okay. But you think
Something I
that
need
that's
to
a
improve
yes
on.
in that you should do it. It's a no in that you're not doing it effectively. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Why we do this show today, Lance? There is a reason, right?
There is, because the company we work for, TrueChat, has a mission statement. And that mission statement is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. And I think we've done that today. And we've learned a little bit more about Levi. And if you like the show and you're telling your family and friends, tell them as a podcast they can find us on Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, and everywhere podcasts are found.
The State of Us releases new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, first thing in the morning as a podcast. Those same episodes heard on the weekends on AM and FM radio stations across the United States and parts of Canada. For The State of Us, I'm Justin T. Weller.
I'm Lance Jackson.
Special thanks to associate recording producer Levi LaForge, senior producer Bradley Butch, and of course, thank you to our audience for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change. Be sure to check out our website, thestateofus.org, for books, articles, and all the ways to tune in. thestateofus.org.